Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this hot topic webinar on strategic space planning. Horizon's committed to helping our clients excel by not only offering the latest software, service, and support, but also advice in business analytics. Part of our mission is to share the evolution of IWMS solutions and demonstrate the ability that they have to address changing business needs and promote the value of facility data within the context of the larger enterprise. We offer our clients knowledge and share best practices in managing their real property data, business processes, and effective oversight through the reporting. Over 35 years of experience are packed into the over 35 modules of the ARCHIBUS Enterprise Suite and developed over 16,000 installations across the globe. In this webinar, we hope to showcase just one example of how Space Planning module can be fully utilized and how it can accurately capture and summarize data easily and offer great planning and strategic value. Most of you here today already know that Horizon is an end-to-end solution provider, but what you don't know, or what you may not know, is we have combined 250 years of experience with ARCHIBUS and workplace software and services. Horizon is proud to be a top-tier ARCHIBUS partner with additional offerings and support of FieldFlex Mobile and EasyHatch. Our team of developers, project managers, and business analysts support clients across Canada and North America, and Horizon's pleased to offer a full range of professional services, including the implementations and upgrades, training, on-site and online resourcing, help desk, customizations, integrations, CAD services, business analytics, and much more. Now, I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time out of their schedules to join us today. As usual, we have a bit of a mix of current clients and maybe some folks that are looking at the ARCHIBUS in the early stages of things. Today, we plan to go pretty deep into the woods by showing a particular space scenario, so I hope we don't lose anybody. We want to show how ARCHIBUS can be used to visualize and plan for optimized decision-making, and also how to maximize the potential of the module through configured home pages. We're going to keep your questions to the end. You can type them into the lower right-hand side of your console, and we'll continue. We'll definitely get to them at the end. We're always the space management module. A great many of our clients begin here to collect information, report on their portfolio space data, linked bidirectionally to their AutoCAD drawings for operational control and oversight. It's here where many may first begin to utilize some of the hundreds of industry standard out-of-the-box reports that come in the ARCHIBUS suite. Many of our clients start with space, and then we'll branch out to other functional areas such as operations, that's the on-demand and preventative maintenance side, or track their leases, or do asset management, or they might be interested in personnel and occupancy or move management, or even the environmental and risk. ARCHIBUS's powerful ability to summarize operational data, to display and visualize it, and share metrics is key to offering powerful analytical tools to report on organizational processes and assets, and really offer strategic value to the organization. The latest versions of ARCHIBUS also now really offer the ability to very quickly drill down from a very high level trending consoles and dashboards down to the underlying details of the key performance metric indicators. ARCHIBUS is a powerful relational database where you can slice and dice the data and share it either automatically or on demand among other enterprise systems through connectors such as finance and HR, or you can share it online in real time or in reports, like exporting it to PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Some important reports from this particular module, though, will include utilization and vacancy review, occupancy, departmental space utilization by building, room, or floor, different summarizations, space chargeback, area comparisons, departmental stat plans, average areas and rooms by departments, as well as many more. So just so everyone knows, the session is being recorded like most of our previous Hot Topic webinars and will be available on our website. So this way, anybody listening can go and see what else there's there. There's energy efficiency, there's BIM and ESRI connections. There's a lot of different topics on things of interest to our clients. So check that out. And you can also share with colleagues who may not be with us today. So getting back to today's presentation and what you'd like to see, and we have with us today Tiffany Lamb. She's one of our important application engineers here at Horizon, and Tiffany works out in Calgary, and her project experience here includes some of the organizations like the Calgary the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority, BCIT, Government of Saskatchewan, Humber College, Shared Services, and many others. Tiffany, it's a real pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Ayanna. Hey, we're looking forward to starting our demo. So I'm going to hop right into a home page. This is actually a configured home page. So just showcasing how effective it could be when used for very particular purposes and when it's configured for the individual organization's use case. When we looking into our space utilization, we're comparing space that's being used and calculating that over the occupied area versus the vacant area. And many organizations we've seen have different means on how they measure that utilization for their business requirements. We can see it be something as simple as simply confirming someone is in a space and designated to a space. Or it could be something a little more complicated in variation where they look into whether or not the space is being reserved as a temporary workstation and how frequently it's being used as a meeting space. But ultimately, when it comes to space, we always ask how much value is being lost with a building with low occupancy. And we know space can be very expensive. And when it's underutilized, it becomes very hard to justify all the operative costs behind the building. So in order for us to visualize and organize that kind of office space that would have the most impact on the organization, we want to rely on gathering the most accurate information on the inventory of personnel and the total properties and buildings within our portfolio. We could also analyze the kind of processes behind the organization on how we define the space for use. And that leads us to a reporting and drives on how well our space is being used. For when we look into the analytics and we can draw up conclusions regarding our utilization. So when leveraging ARCHIBUS, it has the tool sets and the resources to help with the challenge of meeting business end goals that we look towards for solutions to reduce operation costs while being able to deliver an effective and productive workplace. So let's look into this homepage. Right now, in my scenario for this demo, I'm going to look into analyzing the concept of closing a building within my portfolio. I want to definitely gather as much information as possible within my portfolio because a conversation could be about several buildings that are on the table that are in discussion for closure. So to tackle this kind of situation, we're using metrics on our homepage to first make certain aspects within our numbers in our portfolio pop out when we analyze our current information. And essentially, right now, in difference to the usual reports out of the box, I'm sort of treating that homepage as that core go-to report that summarizes all that dense information within my database and showcasing it here as opposed to jumping report to report to find kind of the high-level overview that I needed. And this is more effective. It's also more effective than jumping within ad hoc reports to analyze building by building or department by department. So eventually what I want you guys to look into taking away from this is how you could possibly look into a metric or a homepage to give you that overview instead. So we could have something as in the simple metric charts. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and my homepage can actually be as long as I need it. or as short as I need it, basically to serve that business purpose. But if I have the simple charts, what I might be interested in looking at for my portfolio is looking at some of my top operating expenses or my hazard accounts, what my top market value is, and the current cost to replace my buildings. In this particular sample, most of my charts are pointing out that my BOSMED building, Boston Medical Building, might be my top operating building. It's also got the most amount of hazardous assessments to date. It could be many factors involving the location, but it happens to be ranked top of the market and quite costly to replace the building to restore it to brand new. So something in this example can showcase us our top 5 within our portfolios, so we can analyze at a glance what our targets should be directed towards. We can also use other different types of expandable metrics. For example, if I don't know what these metrics are, these are called scorecards. I can also click on it, and first off, it explains to me what kind of description it is and any kind of algorithms that will take place, so I understand what the metric is doing and also understand how it's capturing data. For example, it's capturing every month. It could also capture on different frequencies that you set. And at the same time, it also can project a trending between the time periods, so I can see that there's a growth pattern and also look at the kind of the historical overview of that metric over time. I can also pull up the benchmarking, and I also get something here called a granularity, so I can actually drill this down by business unit and observe the percentiles here. If I jump into another one, I can also see that I have different kind of granularities I can choose from. So ARCHIBUS out of the box has a huge variety of different granularities you can match your metrics to. I might be interested in looking by city or by building location, and I can actually pull it up by a map view. In this particular instance, I'm using ARCHIBUS 22.1, so it features this map-based metric view. So in terms of starting our particular scenario, assuming we do have enough information to go by, our looking into BOSMED as a potential building that we want to investigate into, if I could also customize metrics to further point me in that direction. So for example, I've got one here for yearly room reservations. If I was to pull it up by building, I can also see, say, the number of meeting spaces that are requested within my Boston Medical office, and so forth. When I'm ready to drill forward, I can go a little deeper by building and look into different information. So I might want to look into my allocations and benchmarks. I can always group my information and look at my occupancy rates. So let's look into my building. And showcase kind of my occupancy over time. I might want to group this by, actually, I will group this by occupancy. And showcase that number that we're looking into for our building. If I'm happy with this, I can also export this information to a document format for further processing in a Word document when I want to generate a report. Now what I'm interested in going into might be hopping back into my allocations and looking at my benchmarks. These are generating reports on the fly. I might be interested in seeing kind of my average area per occupant by building or throughout my entire portfolio. When I narrow it down, I can see it generates a report on the fly for me, which I can again further export it for presentational purposes. Hopping back on, I still want to look up more information within my Boston Medical to see if this is the right building I might want to close. I also have a metric here that is focused on displaying a map. This could be targeting a variety of things that I might be interested in, so that when I start up my homepage, I can be directed at any of my top concerns. When I zoom into my Boston Medical, I can see that there's a 9% occupancy rate right now. So I might want to look into more history within this building. And really see that what kind of tracking that I've done with ARCHIBUS, and look at that occupancy change over time. As you can see here, I can actually scroll by month and capture that information about the actual occupancy. So if I scroll back down to previous months, I can see that the building was a bit more occupied than it is currently. So as it's green, it's showing me that a space is vacant. At yellow, it's showing that there is capacity. If I scroll back even more months, I can see that originally there were quite a number of people in this building, and over time, we've been slowly moving people out of the building. I can also analyze a separate building to compare that to, which again, we've actually hopped into July, but this building was mostly vacant. And say that this was a new building within our scenario, we might want to look into how we can allocate and move the existing employees from that Boston Medical into this new building. So you can see I haven't really filled up the space or all the available office locations here. So we might want to look into that. One of the ways we're going to try doing that is using, within our applications, there is a new section in 22.1 called Strategic Space Planning. So this overview allows us to plan one of those what-if scenarios that we could have to basically forecast and plan what happens to the buildings. This doesn't naturally change the actual data within our database that we've collected, but basically kind of gives us an overview to predict what could happen if we were to do this, if we were to close a building or if we were to move folks from building to building. When I look into switching people out of these buildings, what I might want to look into is kind of that office requirement. One example is if the people in Boston Medical were sitting in certain office spaces that were larger, ideally the best way to move people between offices is to keep that consistent. So to keep the people effective and efficient, you'd want to maintain that standard area of square foot within that office space that they were originally accommodated to. If the new building that we were going to put people into was using, say, a smaller office space and such, we'd want to be able to accommodate that. So in our case, we can compare our different types of room standards and just kind of have an overview that maybe the people from the older building might have had larger rooms. So we want to put that into a factor when we move people around buildings. That's where we define our requirements. So we can define requirements based on room classifications, hierarchies, or organization hierarchies. So we might want to look into how we can increase some of that space standards for those workstations. We can also build forecasts within our space requirements. So while I might create something here, I can also give a 5-year plan, for example, to suggest that in a matter of 5 years, some of these particular departments are going to grow in size. They might be using that particular room standard, but we can expect that their requirements will grow over time. So I can specify within my periods of that particular 5-year plan, I can see that there's a growth that would be factored in for the amount of space I would need. So right now I can specify this workstation that I'm going to move everyone towards. It can be larger. And that doesn't make a global change in my portfolio. But what this allows me to do is when I'm projecting a scenario is that I'll factor in this space requirement. I can also take a look at the charting for these baselines. So I can take a look that within my 5 years, I'm seeing an actual growth with that requirement. And I can have up to multiple periods as long as I define them for what kind of requirement that would be. I'm just going to create a brand new one so you can take a look at what we can do here. So I can put in a space requirement and group it by a division. I'll give it a name. And we can allocate that by building and by floor. So I'll just say by building. We can do it by area. We can do it by our standards. We can also specify as far as the exact floors of a building. But in this case, I'm going to make a very general division requirement and go ahead and save that. So we can start adding these into our particular requirement. So I could say within a certain business unit, say the corporate, the division is executive, I can specify it might be workstation A. And you can see here as I'm filling in my information that ARCHIBUS does have an autofill, so that's very nice for me to click on that, and it pulls up my information of what I already have on workstation A. So in my particular requirement, I might want to project that workstation A should be 180 square feet instead of the 140 when I move people between buildings. And I can also change any of these other factors as well. So we'll go ahead and save that. Jumping back into my scenario, we're going to go into our planning console. I'm going to go create one from scratch. And we can link this to a project because ultimately our projects could be the drive of how these scenarios take place. We'll give it a name. If I had a particular project to point it towards, I can hook that to there. So we'll throw that in there. We can also give an explanation. When we do space planning, it could also organize the information for you to visualize. So it might ask you if you wanted to group the information by different hierarchies within the organization. So I'm going to choose by department. And we can also specify our dates. So we'll go ahead and start that. We can add buildings to our scenario. So I'm going to go ahead and add our Boston Medical Building, and I'll also add our new building called Andrews Building that will eventually move everyone out of BosMed into the Andrews Building. In terms of our layout, we can display the different stacking plans of our current building. I can scroll down and I can see this, the two different buildings and see what my current stacking of department space is. I can also change this organization, so I can actually switch it to a side-by-side comparison that will easily let me compare that data. I can enlarge the size of my current layout, make it wider, or change the size of the text and font. When I move others from this building and drag them to here, what I can have an option to do is create a particular event. Oops. Sorry, there we go. So basically I could specify this happens a month later and we are moving people from then. When I make events, I can also name them in whatever way that makes sense for me. So I could also say it's a fiscal year move for the 2005 year end and confirm that. And basically you see that that didn't change, but when I look into my events, if I jump in, I can go into my fiscal year and then see that that department has moved. So it also lets us track kind of a phase-based event tracking for our particular scenario when we move people from space to space, that some things may not all happen at the same time. So that's a powerful tool that we could use it for, is projecting kind of the lifeline of the particular scenario. It's not something we just move it today. It's something that takes place in a matter of time. So again, here's another. I can also create a new event, or I can keep it within 2015. But maybe we'll just call it 16. We'll confirm that. And now I've got another grouping of events that take place. I was actually last on 2015. So when I jump to 2016, I can see that I'm slowly moving people out of my building. If I'm interested, and say my department is actually going to grow quite a bit, or if I've actually dragged it to the point where I filled up an entire floor, I can easily split the departments up. So we'll just quickly go in here, and oops, that is earlier than today's date. So ARCHIBUS does have a lot of error handling, so it captures us from making mistakes. So when we go in here, I might want to go in my particular department, and I can go and split this department into 2 different groupings in case I might be interested in splitting, in case I run out of room within a floor and I am pushed in a position where I have to move divisions away. So first off, it will help me calculate what kind of space this particular projection will take. And we'll save it. And as you can see here in this particular scenario, I now have 2 different groupings to move these people towards. So I might be interested in punching this into that fiscal year of 2016. And oops, I did not say 2016. So that particular catching of error handling is very useful. And voila. That gives me kind of an overview of this particular starting a project from start to finish. But I'm actually going to hop back to a project that I have mostly set up just so that we can see what happens when we've have a project that's more developed, and we'll be able to see that this particular scenario from 2015, that's the start of this particular scenario, everything is in this building. As we jump to 2017 and go through all those events, eventually we can drag every person out of that building into this new one. We can also do a bit of marking up. For example, I want to showcase where these people are sitting. What that stacking plan was good for was showcasing me kind of that area allocation, but it doesn't necessarily show me where people might have to go over time. So if I'm planning a scenario, I might be pushed in a position where someone's going to start asking me, well, where is my group going to sit? So you can have a variety of tools in 22.1 where we can place drawing pieces and drawing tools, and we can make a bunch of markups and change colors of our fonts. We could put text. And we can actually enlarge the size of this font too. Right now it's at the smallest size, so we might want to eventually increase our size of our lines or our text objects. So it does give us a variety of different tools that we can use for dragging into our plan, and it can capture and save that information. So I can actually make what this allows me to do is it frees up needing a CAD resource to draw these kind of markups, so someone on the fly can mark up a floor plan, specify where different departments go. In this actual example, we made a legend that showcases where our resource department might go and our executives might go. So I can go ahead and save that. and we'll close that. But essentially, I could have created a brand new one, but what I did was to actually showcase one that was already existing, so it could actually keep a variety of different markups that we've done throughout our scenarios. When we're ready to look into more information, we can also look into adding in our space requirements. So earlier, I made that space requirement of the division requirement, and basically that adds in a allocation requirement for a certain division. What that then allows me to do is, we will go ahead and click that again. What that could allow me to do is pass in allocated expectations for watching a particular department grow. I can then hop into my particular gap analysis and see that over my periods of time, what my particular forecast is for the allocation of space. So I can scroll through this particular timeline between those months of events that I've had, and I can see how I've better utilized the available space. I can also jump into my allocation events, and this can allow me to group the events by organization or by dates or by the building. And this is handy when I need to go forward with this kind of scenario and try to get an idea of how much effort would be required into moving these individuals, because it'll explain to me, first off, where they're going, and kind of any of the percentiles I was looking at into, and any head counts that I should be aware of. So we can pass this forward towards a move coordinator and get their feedback. Again, we can also switch this by organization, and that just changes the way that this particular report organizes the data for our needs. What we might be interested in looking into is we can also compare different scenarios. So I could have made copies of different scenarios, different variants of how we close this building, and we can compare the one to the second one and just kind of review which one made the better use of the space. So when I compared scenario 1 to scenario 2, I can see that one happened to be a better use of space. Most of these other reports also help us focus within an area so we weren't in our console. So our proposed moves and our space requirement details. The moves, again, was something that we could have used to pass along, showcasing the dates that would take place within our particular scenario. And our requirement details can showcase us any space requirements you might for this particular scenario. And in this case right now, we actually did not go very far, but say if we had a space requirement, it could have been that we had to expand a particular division, and that showcases that information there. So this kind of summarizes that use of home pages and our space planning abilities in 22.1. So Anna, would you like to take it from here?
Sure. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Really appreciate that. I know there's a lot of information here, and some of what you're doing is dancing around the data. When any of these, when any of our clients upgrade, there's training involved, and we do also offer ad hoc training to be able to best utilize the things. Another thing to kind of keep in mind is once you're familiar with a package, it certainly makes it a lot more clear, and you're able to save things in these home pages so that the data can be utilized at any point. So it's interesting, and I really appreciate your time. We do have had a couple of questions come in.
Right, fire away.
I would like to invite anyone at this time, if there's any that you're thinking about, just type them into the console, and I'll read them out here. Tiffany, one of the questions that came in is they wondered, someone has wondered how long it takes to customize a metric.
So out of the box, there is about 200 metrics that ARCHIBUS does have. So while you see a metric here on this particular homepage, it's not limited to that. There are a variety of different home pages that already showcase different metrics that are already available to you. And in the event that you do have to create one, it's absolutely possible. As long as the data is in the system, you could make a metric out of it. It's not that much to make a metric, but if you're happy, we are definitely able to help as a Horizon team to provide some expert user hours to work with you through those kind of things so that you might be able to best identify what you want to see on a metric, and we can create that for you or guide you through that process. So you are looking at a couple of minutes to set up a metric with the proper training, but the way that the metric captures is also by frequency that we specified. So if a metric that you did make looked like there was no information to it, it could just be a matter of needing to see that over time that data is captured into our system. Because what the metrics does is that it takes the live data from your database and then summarizes it based on the reoccurrence factor.
Great, thanks. I do have another one. There's I have someone that is asking about the limit. Is there a limit to the number of home pages that can be made?
There is no limit, but definitely it's more. You can also specify it by role. So ARCHIBUS is role-based, so individuals of groups of the roles can have access to a variety of different home pages. ARCHIBUS does have a few out-of-the-box home pages that you can review and kind of give you an idea of some of the capabilities. So really, even the home pages itself, it can be as long as you need it to, but it's really based on kind of a design principle to make things simple and sweet and kind of get that overhead. What that intention of that home page is kind of that go-to location to get to where you need to be within shorter clicks. So we can just specify that the home page focuses several modules into one as opposed to module by module base, because some of these particular home pages out of the box may initially appear as though it is a module focused home page, but it could be a variety of grouping different elements from different modules and bringing it all into one page. So there is no limit, but definitely you do want to organize it in a way that would that you would be able to get the best user experience out of it.
Sounds great. Thanks. I also, perhaps Tiffany, maybe you can explain what some of the other uses for the strategy space planning module or the console could be used for. This was really interesting to see this particular scenario, but I'm just wondering what else folks might be able to use it for.
What we can do with it is we can project growth within an organization. In our space requirements, we did have the opportunity to specify by different time periods what a growth might look like for a division or by department or even by the whole building. So another thing you might have been interested in looking to is, for example, possibly linking that up to a metric where it might have showcased me that over time of a period of trend, I've been increasing in the amount of employees, so that might push me towards creating a scenario where I want to project growth. And you can also then further make another situation where you look into expansion. So you can create a brand new floor, for example, or a brand new building within our scenario and specify how much space that would occupy and be able to move people from or into these buildings that don't necessarily exist in your portfolio yet, but that lets you play around with those kind of possible situations. And does that answer some of those questions? Do we got any more?
Sorry, yeah, I think that's probably all the time we have. I don't have any other questions come in. Definitely want to thank everyone for their time, and you especially, Tiffany, for sort of running us through what can be a fairly complicated scenario planning. Just a quick snapshot of it. Really appreciate that. I can see where it would be quite beneficial. If anyone does have more questions they can think of afterwards, certainly, or would like a follow-up discussion with one of our team, or if you want to see something up close, definitely reach out to us. I did have a couple of just announcements, just brief announcements about some upcoming events. We do have the ARPIC, the Real Property Institute of Canada National Workshop is coming up at the Shaw Centre here in Ottawa in a few short weeks. So you can go to the website if you're interested in that. I would like to also plug the Nexus, that's the International ARCHIBUS Users Conference, which is being held in San Diego this year. It happens May 1st and 4th, and these Nexus events are a great chance to connect and learn from not only the manufacturer, ARCHIBUS, who's based out of Boston themselves, but also the hundreds of people who are really doing amazing things. They really showcase the cutting-edge things that they're doing with ARCHIBUS for their organizations. It's a really dynamic community of peers and well worth the time if you can get. We will be doing some webinars to bring back what we, the takeaways. We always do that every year, and it's usually well attended, so if you want to watch our website for the announcements of that as well. I would also like to just let people know that there is upcoming training. We always run sessional training, the fundamental systems admin and advanced programming courses throughout the year. The winter session has been set, and the training dates and agendas are also on our website. And the next one is the advanced programming, which is the second week of December, and then January for fundamentals, and I think in February we have a systems admin. So just to let folks know about that. You can also connect either on our website, or if you want to reach out to us, you can follow us on Twitter at Horizant1, or you can like us on Facebook or LinkedIn. So there's lots of ways to connect. I guess that's it for now, so definitely thanks again for your time, and the webinar's ending, so enjoy the rest of your day.